Yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 308, and you are with your High Priest of Khonshu, Ray. G'day, everybody, wherever you are. Um, we are back. I am back, as well are you, to look at another Moonshine as a new comic book review. So we'll be looking at Moon Knight, the annual issue 1 from 2022. Before any of that, of course, a huge thank you to all our patroonies. Thank you so much, as well as our top tier patroonies and principal sponsors: Odin Sword, Drew Terms, Daniel Doing, Frank the Think Tank, CLZ Comics, and Dreamland Comics from Schoenberg, Illinois. Now, we are live casting as we do for all new releases. So, very excited to be here. Again, sorry, you are just left with your one high priest here, Ray, going it alone. But I am not really alone because we have a ton of feedback to get through for this annual, which is great. Before I get too far ahead of myself, I want to shout out a big thank you to new patroni Dan Newland. So Dan, welcome aboard. I'm hoping you've been enjoying the back catalogue of exclusive content. Hopefully you're enjoying the exclusive content coming your way. Typically that would involve, I guess, videos of some episodes, not live streams, that you can see, as well as bonus episodes in the future. So a huge thank you so much for your support, your patronage. Hopefully we can make it worth your while as well, and just hopefully that you're enjoying the show too, of course. So yeah, I mean, we are going to look at Moon Knight annual. It's down in Marvel Fandom Wiki as Volume 3, Issue 1. So those of you who are kind of Moon Knight fans for a while, or have been for a while, you know that there have been annuals in the past as well. And they're usually a lot of fun because they're kind of one-offs. There's a little bit more meat to the issue, so they're usually a little bit larger, and it's no different here as well. We'll get to that, of course. Now, a bit of just a very tiny bit of white noise, nothing too drastic. The only thing being that I have seen banding around the internet is that Oscar Isaac is still, he's kind of hinting again towards season 2, or there being works for Moon Knight season 2 TV show, or an appearance very shortly. We as loonies have been speculating as to when this will be. It's been, I think one of the articles said, yeah, it's been about 6 months now. We haven't heard a peep. There has been that Instagram video from Muhammad Diab's daughter with Oscar Isaac on a boat as well. They're all in Cairo, we're all in Egypt, and they've kind of cryptically said, well, why would we be here, if we're not doing a Moon Knight season 2? More recently, I think Oscar Isaac, who has been promoting, Oscar Isaac has entered the realm of comics. Isn't that great? But he is associated with a graphic novel, or I think some graphic novels coming up. And in an interview with, I'm not sure which website, he was kind of teasing the fact that there would be Moon Knight, that he would return in some capacity on screen. Again, very kind of cryptic. We can't make too much of it, but the fact that people are still asking him, for me, shows that people still wonder, or at least in some point have enjoyed the show. So gives them pause enough to actually ask that question to Oscar Isaac when they do. Albeit, he was promoting a comic book, so the associations are there, but, still, I like to think that there would be something in the pipelines. I am aiming for, obviously, I think a next appearance will be in the movies. we may not necessarily get a season 2 for a while. Having said that, though, I'm going to just go off on a bit of a tangent. Apparently, they are in talks, Disney Plus or Marvel or whoever, of doing a Vision spin-off from WandaVision. So we've got Agatha Harkness. Now Vision might get his own TV show. So, there's a lot of talk about more TV shows, which is good as well. It may not necessarily mean the likes of Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, who've actually they've announced they're getting renewed for another season, and She-Hulk, say, for instance. They might be more towards the movies, but, I'll get what I can take. Hopefully we get to see Moon Knight again. We get to see a bit more of Jake Lockley, that sort of stuff as well. Apart from that, Loonies, there isn't that much. We've been kind of blessed with 2 weeks in a row of new content. So, here's to many more. Like I said, when Rebecca returns, we might bundle up some appearances of his. Most notably, Crypt of Shadows, I think, has popped up most recently. We might wait for a few more appearances before we cover that. But apart from that, he's looking pretty healthy on the comic book front. So I guess without delaying it any further, let's get into our Moonshine review for this annual. Now, I appreciate, Loonies, that it may be a little bit early in the morning, but please don't be shy to jump in. As I say, this is a live stream. Very keen to hear your thoughts. I've got some written feedback that I'll be going through, but very excited at this Moonshine, this Moon Knight annual. So, as I mentioned, Moon Knight Annual Volume 3, Issue 1, it's titled Homecoming. It was released October 26th, 2022, and it's got a cover date of December 2022. We have writers Jed MacKay, Federico Sabatini, on inks as well, Rochelle Rosenberg, Corey Pettit on letters, and editors Martin Biro, Annalise Bisa, and Tom Brevoort. Now we have a beautiful, I'm going to add this on, and again, since we're live streaming, I do have some visuals, so any references to visual aids, apologies to the podcast listeners. You can go check out our video anyway on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. Anyway, I've chucked up here the front cover by Rod Reyes. I'm going to say friend of the show. He was one of the very first. He was one of the first creators that we approached to at least give us a stinger or at least be associated with the show. He gave us a little hi. This is Rod Reyes talking about when we covered Damnation all the way back March 2017, I think, or 2018. So yeah, Rod Reyes, some great art here for the front cover. And we have some variant covers, so I'm going to go straight into it as well. The first one is by Nick Klein. Looks absolutely gorgeous. I put that on our header photo for our Facebook group. And also, hang on, let me just see if I can play around with this thing. Nah, that's not good. Ray's a bit too big there. That's better. And so really looking good there, just Moon Knight taking off. Again, I think it looks like watercolors or something. And then we have a 1-25 by none other than the maestro himself, Bill Sienkiewicz. So this looks beautiful. I mean, very ghostly, very spectral. 1-25, is there a chance that Ray will ever get a copy? I doubt it, but I am certainly going to look at getting the variant annual. I've already got the regular cover, but I'm hoping I can nab one of those Nick Klein ones. Very cool indeed. Typically as well available at this moment on in floppy format or on digital, so you can pick it up digitally via Kindle or through the Marvel app. So go check it out if the printed format is not your to your liking. So, listeners, what I will usually do is that I'll go through a bare bones or a synopsis. Those that haven't listened before, shame on you. No, only joking. Thank you for tuning in. So what I'll do first, I'll go through a bare bones, and this time it will be from the pen of yours truly. Again, Wiki has let me down. I could have cut a lot of corners and checked out them or Comic Vine. They usually do some pretty good synopses, but I've had to fork out the text myself, so to speak. So I'll be going through a bare bones, then an overall impression, what I thought of the annual, and that will be closely followed by aspects like key moments. So I'm going to break down the annual into, the moments that whilst you were reading were going, okay, this is bang, this is what this annual is all about, or this is what this set piece is all about. I'll go through that, what stood out for me, as well as any incidental notes on writing, art, themes, characterizations, or references to other runs. Now, I just realized there's a note that I put in that I was meant to follow up on, and I hadn't. So again, if you're listening or if you know, jump on in, correct Ray, or show that you know a lot more about Moon Knight than Ray, which, there are a bazillion people that probably do, so no shame there. I'll end it with a rating, and of course, this will be from the patented Connoisseurs rating system. Now, for those of you that actually don't know or think that I am mispronouncing Khonshu, no, it is Connoisseur. So Connoisseur was a fantastic original OG. He was the original co-host to the show. He did, a fair few of the first, I think the first 100 or so shows. Fantastic. A shout out to Connoisseur. How are you? Sorry, his name's Connor. I like to call him Connoisseur. I call them Connoisseur. But yeah, they're fantastic. And they came up with this rating system between 1 to 10, all with a particular description for each number. So you'll see what I have gone for here. So without any more babbling from Ray, or rambling, thank you, Noel, I'm going to go into the bare bones. Here it is. Though Reese tries her best, she can't prevent someone from storming through the midnight mission, intent on speaking with Moon Knight. It's Marlene, and she demands Moon Knight's services. Their daughter, Dietrich, has been abducted by Jack Russell in what appears to be one aspect of a grander prophecy. Russell has since worked his way up to becoming the king of all wolves, and his reading of the Darkhold has set about his mission to destroy Khonshu. It is revealed that werewolves and the Egyptian deity share a deep connection, one of servitude and lunar allegiance. Russell hopes to destroy Khonshu in order to free his people, and he needs both Dietrich and Moon Knight to do so. Moon Knight enlists the help of Hunter's Moon, and the pair hurtle towards the werewolves' lair in a bid to save Dietrich and to stop the king of all wolves. Hunter's Moon is against the fact that Dietrich is an offspring of a Fist of Khonshu, as one of the rights of being a Fist of Khonshu include a celibacy. To Hunter's Moon, Dietrich is an aberration. However, Mark trusts Dr. Batter to do the right thing and save Dietrich, while Mark seeks out Jack Russell himself. Khonshu goads Hunter's Moon to end Dietrich, in effect breaking the prophecy, saving Khonshu, and maintaining the rules of being an avatar of vengeance. In the meantime, Moon Knight tackles Jack Russell in the hope to stop him in his tracks. Hunter's Moon arrives with a blade to Dietrich's throat, threatening Russell that if you kill Spectre, she dies. Russell remarks he never wanted to harm Dietrich or any child, and eventually it is time that escapes them all. with Dietrich noting that the window in which to enact the prophecy has passed. The planets are no longer in alignment. With nothing more to gain, they depart. Moon Knight threatening Jack that the next time they cross paths, it will be fatal. Back at the Midnight Mission, Mark considers Marlene and Dietrich to stay at the mission, or alternatively, rejoining Marlene and Dietrich as a family overseas. But Marlene is more realistic than romantic. Though they can never be together, they still can enjoy the small moments. So Mark, Marlene, Dietrich and Reese head out for ice cream, with Mark left to slowly come to terms with the fact that this will be all they have. Yep. So that pretty much sums up this annual, this 30-plus page annual. It's pretty chunky, full of information. Let me just pull it up. There's full of information here. Overall impressions, I absolutely loved this. There's something about taking a break from the ongoing serial of a titular series and just having a one shot, which, you know, the bonus is that it does factor in very little, but it does factor into the ongoing plot and drama of the series. But it's essentially its own thing, and to have this kind of longer format, this liberty of freedom of not being bound to an ongoing serial, I just really take to. And I think Jed MacKay, again, has blown this out of the water. I mean, the fact that we get a very strong ongoing series with a particular theme and I guess arc to it, for Jed to tackle, you know, the old stuff, because, you know, as much as we've been loving the likes of Reese and Soldier, one of the initial questions that we had was, you know, what of the supporting cast, the traditional supporting cast of Marlene, Frenchie, Jenna, you know, even Dietrich as well. And we did get mentions of them, which kind of satiated our wants of it, and it was overshadowed anyway with just how remarkable I think MacKay has been handling this run. But now to actually have an annual, a one and done story that brings in a classic character like Marlene and such a huge legacy character like Dietrich, is just, it was so much fun. I mean, I guess I didn't know what to expect from this. From the front cover, it looked like almost an homage to Werewolf by Night 32, in the sense that we get the traditional Jack Russell, who, mind you, is very different within the pages. I'll get to that. But this seemed like that classic tussle between Moon Knight and Jack Russell. It was anything but that, because, and we'll get into it, MacKay interweaves so many things, as well as he brings new things to the table, which is, I think, just just kind of spellbinding. I don't know how else to describe it. So I really did enjoy this annual. So I've got here up on the video, I'm not going to go through panel by panel. Of course, I'm going to flick back and forth, depending on my points. But the first thing I wanted to point out, and again, maybe I should read just this little blurb at the beginning. Moon Knight has sacrificed and endured much to establish his midnight mission and himself as a trusted protector of his neighborhood in New York City. In the process, he has also gained several new allies, including his vampire assistant Reese and fellow Fist of Khonshu hunters Moon. But Moon Knight's complicated past has a way of catching up to him. So yeah, that's really enough just to give you a tease. But yeah, that's how we are kind of framing this story. And as the Bare Bones mentioned, that was the story that, as I wrote it, the Bare Bones, I mean, not this story. But the first point I would is straight off the bat. We get Reese running in, Moon Knight, just Mr. Knight, just doing his business around the Midnight Mission. Bang. Page 2, we get Marlene. And what a pleasant surprise this was. We know that just from the nature of Marlene and Mark Spector and the relationship that, there is going to be some tumult because she mentions it, they're off again, on again, off again, on again relationship. It's so complicated. It's such a hard thing. You would not, you wouldn't abuse. What's the word? You could totally understand why Marlene would leave Mark, and we see it. Like it's mentioned earlier in the MacKay run that she and Dietrich have gone overseas to get away from him because his lifestyle, absolutely true, is detrimental to their family life. But having said that, so two things. Having said that, it's great to see her back, but two, there's going to be some juicy like drama and issues ahead, and again, I think this story does it really well. As mentioned in the synopsis, Marlene is back and she wants Moon Knight, Mr. Knight, to kill Jack Russell because he's kidnapped. They were in France and he's kidnapped Dietrich. He even goes as far as to tell Marlene where he's hanging out, so it's not hard for Moon Knight to track him down because he wants Moon Knight to come to him. That's whole part of the prophecy. He wants that blood of the fist, as well as, I'm assuming, the blood of his offspring, Dietrich. But great to see Marlene back. Art-wise, she's looking very different, but Sabatini has got a very stylized, I guess he's got a stylized look to an extent, and I'm just harking back to the Devil's Reign, Moon Knight. That seemed more so on the manga, like anime side. What I found with this annual, and this is just purely an observation, is that you sometimes get that, like a more so, well, even here, this bottom panel of Marlene, but then you get like other different looks, like even this page with Mark Spector, or should I say Jake, when he takes off the mask. The face is very different, like a different style. So I found that very noticeable. Dietrich, as I mentioned, if I kind of forward ahead to Dietrich here, as she's kind of waiting and hanging out with Jack Russell, and he gives her a wrap, and he's actually been quite nice to her. She's very kind of outspoken, very. I think voice wise, she's very good. Like MacKay kind of captures her voice. She wasn't developed fully, really, in the Bemis run, but you get a sense of her. She's got the dyed hair. It's no secret that Bemis fashioned it after his own, Dietrich after his own daughter, that kind of look. But she's got that kind of, punky, semi-rebellious, cheeky nature, and she very much captures it here as well, here and towards the end. And then just, again, sticking to the artwork, then I find like we get some really dynamic, like comic booky looking artwork. So for me, there's a mix between, I'm going to go flick back to, say for instance, a couple of looks of Mark Spector or Jake. They're looking, dare I say, a little goofy. Then you have more of the, Marlene is drawn beautifully here, but more of the manga looking kind of artwork again, as I said, like with Dietrich. Then you get this awesome dynamic kind of artwork of Jack Russell and the werewolves, and you can see that throughout the pages that they show. Really cool. So the artwork, I'm not going to say it's inconsistent, but and I enjoyed the artwork, of course. Mr. Knight and Moon Knight look fantastic. Sabatini does great work with that. But I don't know, just see that like the styles of faces potentially look different. And I'm not to say that faces should all look the same, because, on the flip side, you go to some artists who, they make everyone's face essentially the same, just different different hairstyle, different costume. So what I'm saying, I guess, is that uh, faces may change even within that same person, from page to page here from Sabatini. But overall, I really do enjoy the art. I mean, Rochelle Rosenberg again, the way she treats the glowing Mr. Knight and Moon Knight, the way she treats the moon is fantastic. So, can't be faulted there. The second kind of aspect I wanted to raise was I found it was very interesting because we haven't seen Marlene for so long. Was her talk with Reese. So once Moon Knight goes and teams up with Hunter's Moon, we get Reese and Marlene just talking amongst themselves. And I mean, first over here we see Marlene explaining basically that, Mark, this is all your fault again because of your lifestyle. Our daughter is in danger, and she's absolutely right. So I actually put this in a note as one of those recurring themes of how Moon Knight's close friends are always hurt indirectly by him because of him being Moon Knight. With Moon Knight, it's a bit more complicated than that because you can arguably say a lot of heroes, their Achilles heel would be if villains went for their family or their loved ones. But I think here, and not in such a direct way, but Moon Knight, he brought this on Marlene and Dietrich. There are more kind of solid examples of that in the Houston run where Mark himself pushes away, Marlene or Frenchie. He causes their life, makes their life a misery. There are examples when that's a lot more direct, but I think here that's what kind of MacKay is leaning towards, like the fact that, as Marlene says, they took her because of you, Mark. This is your fault. Now, having said that as well, I don't want to sound harsh, but it's kind of par for the course as well. Like, if you look at other examples of Mary Jane, say, for instance, in Spider-Man, she knows what comes with Peter Parker being Spider-Man, her husband or ex-husband being Spider-Man. She knows and understands that. I guess with Marlene, in here at least, she does not accept the fact, and she kind of is happy to point fingers to Mark. She even goes further as to say, where is it? Let me see if I can find it. Because, she even says here, there's a flashback here when Reese and Marlene are talking. Come back with her, Mark, or die trying. There's no third option. She's really kind of laying it to Mark. And so I guess you can glean from that she's obviously very desperate to get Dietrich back. That she's probably harboring a bit of anger towards Mark, like this is partly his fault. Maybe like she knows that he can get resurrected, but there's a lot of kind of venom in that. So, or die trying. She doesn't care about him at all. She just wants him to save Dietrich and do whatever it takes. So, again, like I said, it's not like a very straightforward relationship that they have. They do love each other, as it's kind of confirmed in the end, but it's unfortunately a very dysfunctional family. So as well, from this, Marlene and Reese kind of talk about Mark, and I found it interesting because I thought Reese I think she was meant to be pegged at being 16 years old. Like she's kind of a teenager. And not to say that this doesn't happen, but, Marlene puts it to her, you like him, like, you're in love with him, right? And Reese says, no, he saved a lot of people. He saved me a lot of times. But Marlene says something here, and again, I'm going to read it off the page. Marlene says to Reese, that's the thing. He saves people, everyone except himself and the people closest to him. Um, yeah, and he's got a lot of problems too. Yeah, so she asked him, "Are you in love with him? He's hardly my type, but he needs someone in his corner." And it's funny to see that of her impression of Tigra. She still describes Tigra as the snitch, although she acknowledges that Tigra has stuck by Moon Knight, which is cool. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, there's things here, and Marlene I loved how she was showing her experience. She says here, we broke each other's hearts over the years again and again. In time, the horror outpaced the excitement. So she's kind of giving advice to Reese. Look, you might find this a thrilling lifestyle, and he saved you. You're grateful. That's fine, but you'll see in time that this is not fun, and this is potentially horrific for you, and Mark is very damaging. There's a huge price that Moon Knight pays for being a hero. He kind of loses everyone around him, and that is the most tragic thing, I think, because he very much relies on his network. We've said this before. I mean, even in Volume 1, the Mensch run, he relies on them, although he's seen as a lone wolf. Have a Facebook user. Sorry, I can't see your identity. Please do. Please check this out. This could be Dave Finn. I am assuming from Signal of Doom, because he's so happy Marlene is back. It is Dave. Somehow I knew that, Dave. But yeah, please check it out, Dave. This is really fun. Of course, I'm a bit biased because I'm a Moon Knight fan, but this solid story and this injection of new life that MacKay gives to the lore, I'll get to. It's coming. You should definitely check it out. So Marlene is very much just giving her piece to Reese. Look, I don't think she really even cares or is worried about Reese. She's got a very complicated relationship with Marlene. So, with Moon Knight. So, whether or not this young girl might be infatuated with Mark doesn't matter. As I said, they both love each other. They've got a stronger bond. It just so happens that they can't kind of share their life together. Dave, I'm riding solo into the darkness, Dave. This is it. I am on a black sheet, hurling towards a gaping maw. Into nothingness, Dave, into nothingness. So before I get fully sidetracked here, getting up to the big moment here, Jack Russell as King of all Wolves. Now, the first kind of thing I said to myself was, what the hell does that mean? Like, what has he been up to? And again, I was hoping anyone out there that may be listening, again, I appreciate it's early in the morning for US listeners, but does anyone know the guys over at Werewolf by Night, of course they would know. I'm just wondering what happened to Jack Russell. This is something that Jed MacKay is allowed to do. I mean, obviously he is. It's a big thing because I would think that what with the TV show and potential release of a mini or even an ongoing Werewolf by Night series, which Marvel is known to do when they release a TV show, this pretty much kind of lays a foundation for how Jack is going. I mean, he pretty much fills in the gap of Jack. Where's the page? And Dave, yes, I am in the void, in the big void. Let me see here. He actually went through a whole series of rites and passages to, yeah. So, King of all wolves, and this bleeds into the other aspect. So Jed MacKay has set up the fact that Jack Russell, he now looks very different. He looks pretty cool here, I reckon. not much of a costume, but I like the brown markings on his shoulders, and don't know exactly what they are. There might be skin pulled away because I know he's a werewolf, and I don't know, werewolves under the skin, or they could be tattoos. He's got some teeth around his neck. Is bandaged up. He looks a bit ragtag. He's got the full blown beard and moustache and long hair, so he's really kind of like a wild man in that sense, but totally different from what you'd expect from, at least. I mean, I've read the classic Werewolf by Nights. He looks very different here. Anyway, he's actually achieved this status of King of all wolves. He read the Darkhold, this prophecy, and he fought challenges for the leadership of this. So he worked his way up the ladder, and it's mentioned here all the packs in North America and won in the sacred rites at the conclave of the Boreal Cordillera. So similar to what we've seen in the ongoing series with the vampire nations having some sort of conclave and grand meeting, it seems concurrently we have the werewolves. They've got their own kind of factions and they've got their own rituals to do. And Jack Russell has worked his way up. He's proved himself in running battles with the Wendigo in the Hudson Bay Wars last winter. I'm gonna call out references to, I'm gonna say Alpha Flight because there's a Wendigo in there, isn't there? No, there has been Wendigos, Wolverine, that sort of stuff. Wendigos have featured a lot in Marvel Comics. So yeah, he has got hold of this prophecy, and in order to enact this prophecy, it could only come from the King of all wolves. So he is driven. He is driven like a beat up Tirana, because he got that position, worked really hard to get that position. Now he's looking for Diatrus, well, he's got Diatrus, and now he's looking for the blood of Moon Knight in order to fulfill this prophecy. And he's even survived the Darkhold. Like, many people who read the Darkhold go insane. It can be argued that he has gone insane, you just don't know, but he did say that he kept his sanity. So I'm going with old Jack there. I've got a little sympathy for Jack. I don't see him as an out-and-out villain, so I was a little mixed with having Jack as the true antagonist, but there's enough humanity there from Jed MacKay in writing Jack to let you know that he's not absolutely bad. So that's got to be a good thing. So as I mentioned, that goes into the prophecy. Now, like, if I can go through the prophecy here. So basically, Jack's motive, he wants to free all the werewolves from slavery, and what I think is a masterstroke from Jed MacKay is that he's now tied in lycanthropy and werewolves with Khonshu. It reminded me a little bit of Underworld. If you replace Khonshu, Egyptian deity, with, say, vampires, there was kind of that in the fact that the werewolves were kind of born, so to speak, into slavery. Over here, they're born into slavery or into service of Khonshu. They're basically, I assume he created them. It's mentioned here he bound them to the symbol of the moon. So when the moon was full, that was when they lost control of themselves and they became the shock troops in his war, as he says, to be his berserkers. So we now have a purpose for werewolves within the Marvel Universe, or maybe these are just particular types of werewolves, but we now have a purpose. They have been born from Khonshu to act as his berserker soldiers. And I like how MacKay has done this, like, just to tie in Khonshu with it. And not only tying it with Khonshu, but with this story having that prophecy like integral to, the motives of Jack Russell, the motives of Khonshu, by bringing Khonshu in, that sort of stuff. So as mentioned, Jack wants to be free of this slavery. And the prophecy talks of killing a god, so you can only assume that he wants to kill Khonshu. Now, the thing that kind of did make me wonder a little bit was towards the end, we learn that Jack wanted to just convert Dietrich. He didn't want to kill her because he didn't want to have another child killed, because of a prophecy. And he refers to Tyr, which was another reference of a run. Was mentioned in the editor's note, X Factor 224. I've got to read that. But apparently he lost someone close to him, almost like a son, a werewolf son to him. So he says that, but he wants to free his prime motive is to free the werewolves by killing Khonshu. So maybe I'm just thinking this through my head. So maybe he still wants to do that, of course, but he wants to extract, I guess, the blood of Dietrich somehow to fulfill the prophecy, but not kill her. So his intent was to fulfill the prophecy, but for Dietrich not really to kill her. Maybe do whatever. It's not really revealed what the actual details are for having Dietrich. You only assume that he was going to take her blood, sacrifice her, but he wanted to convert her into a werewolf. And he said that she would end it all. So I'm not sure. There's more. Maybe there's more to it. It just got a little bit ambiguous there for me. So I'm thinking, so what is the prophecy then for the offspring of a Fist of Khonshu to be converted to a werewolf and then kill Khonshu? Was that the idea, or is this just something that he's come about alongside fulfilling the prophecy? I don't know. So it's a little bit vague there. So I found myself kind of wondering a little bit as to what that meant. And I understand storytelling wise, it ties into being parallel or having some significance because he lost Tyr in X Factor 224, and so he doesn't want to kill Dietrich. There's that kind of correlation there, but that I found that to get to that maybe unnecessary. Maybe he didn't need to, but again, I'm sure MacKay put that in place to give Jack Russell a bit more of a human side. Anyway, that was an awesome prophecy, I thought. So fair play to MacKay for adding that in, and I hope they run with it as well, because that, and just learning more about werewolves. I mean, we're talking about the conclave in Cordillera, Boreal Cordillera. What is that? What is that all about? I love to see it. He's dropped these nice little possibilities and potential that could be carried on throughout. But again, I love the connection between Khonshu and the werewolves. This also kind of goes on to, I guess, my final point of aspects. Hunter's Moon's, I guess, his issues are pretty quandary. I'm not even sure if that's the right word. But his choices that he has to make. Now, I found this very cool in the fact that, okay, so Jack Russell needs... So it distills down to the point that if Dietrich dies, then Jack Russell won't be able to fulfill his prophecy. But, if Jack Russell kills Moon Knight and kind of fulfills that part of the prophecy, then Hunter's Moon will kill Dietrich, because to make sure that this prophecy doesn't come into hand. The beauty of it is that it's also convenient in the fact that Dietrich is seen as, and as Hunter's Moon says, an aberration to the Fists of Khonshu. To Khonshu, they're not meant to have children. So where we go here? Let me find. So I've pulled up the page here when they're talking on the fire escape. And so Badder goes, there's a rough translation from the Darkhold as discovered by the Fist Omari. I want to learn about Omari as well. Can we get a backstory on Omari? So Badder, he recites from memory. He's a pretty good student. When the moon leads the skies, the blood of the Fist anointed with the blood of the Fist, a weapon to kill their grandsire, the moon god, forged by the king of all wolves, anointed in blood, tempered with a curse there's more, but that's the crux of it. Actually, having said that, I think that reveals it. I think Jack Russell would then convert Dietrich to be the weapon to kill Khonshu. So there you go. I mean, yeah, he's saying that he's being a bit more humane by not killing her, but he's still converting her into a monster. I mean, come on. Anyway, now what have we got here? The moon leading the skies refers to a planetary alignment, so one of the parameters of having this prophecy. The blood of the fist, a repetition understood to mean the kin, the issue of the fist, or a child. So the other ingredient to this recipe is a child. And finally, which we, by definition and decree, do not and cannot have. So this is set as a fist of Khonshu. So Bada doesn't think much of this prophecy at all because he knows, hey, look, none of the fists have children. So this prophecy is just bollocks. But I love it. A little bit of humor. Moon Knight pauses. You're going to want to suit up. So, he's and again, this reiterates how Moon Knight is kind of against the grain from normal or your typical Moon Knights. So I like that aspect as well. Again, very clever writing, I think, from Jed MacKay. So there's this. So so Hunter's Moon comes to the head here when he is left to save Dietrich, to find her, but he's got Khonshu kind of saying, "Go kill her," so the prophecy can't be done, can't be made, and she's not meant to exist. I thought that was a really good use of Khonshu because we know that Hunter's Moon is very devout. So if anyone was to listen to Khonshu, or we were to get a Khonshu appearance, it would be in conversation with Hunter's Moon. So I think very smart. Other small incidental things as I'm kind of looking here, I loved how Moon Knight has has kind of armed the car that they ram into the lair with some explosives, but laced with silverware. So that all hurts the werewolves as they kind of like shrapnel, silver shrapnel. But yeah, this awesome, again, talking about art, this awesome look of Moon Knight and Hunter's Moon just walking through the debris. Reminds me a little bit of Bad Boys. Love it. Well, not so much Will Smith now. Anyway, so we get him coming up to, like, he breaks in, and here he finds Dietrich. Who are you? And he's got the big blade. So I like that tension that creates. I mean, that he's not going to, well, I think he wasn't going to kill Dietrich, but it's still there because you know how devout Hunter's Moon is. You know what it means to be a fist of Khonshu for Hunter's Moon. So, he'd like to keep the slates clean. But thankfully he does the right thing. So that's enough for me before we get into some feedback. Just some other things here. Some notes in the writing. I said I loved how Jack Russell noted that he remained sane after reading the Darkhold prophecy. Just this lore building from MacKay has just been brilliant with Khonshu and the werewolves. Jack Russell sporting a great new look from Sabatini. The shots from Hunter's Moon and Moon Knight look awesome. Anime, just bear with me. Characterizations, I thought Dietrich was very good. Marlene, I think she was good as well. I mean, she kind of held that torch of being the much abused partner in a relationship and just had enough, and she now knows what she wants to do, and she's strong in that conviction. I think that came across with her. Hunter's Moon being very devout, of course. Jack Russell, again, anyone that knows what happened to him, please let me know. Between now and when he was last seen in Marvel Comics, I just don't know. Oh, yeah, this other thing, the final thing with references to other runs, Marlene mentions her ex-husband, Eric. Now, I haven't verified this, so please, Loonies, let me know, or I'm going to just Google it after this recording. But Eric, I can't remember if in Moon Knight issue 14, I think, of the Houston run, was it 13 or 14, with Tom Coker on art, when Marlene is going out with this other guy. I'm not sure if that's Eric. but it's definitely not Mark. And that's when they get accosted by muggers, and Marlene gets her sets of keys out and kind of uses it like Wolverine. Very bad, but very kick-ass moment. I can't remember if that was Eric. It might be a very big deep dive, actually, because that could... I'm just thinking off the top of my head, we could be going all the way back to, I think, Volume 1, or even before then. I do recall Marlene having dinner with someone that wasn't Mark. I have a feeling that could be Eric too. Anyway, if anyone can let me know, that'd be great. All right, I'm going to leave that here. My thoughts, you've heard them all. I've spouted them for nearly an hour. I'm going to give this a big full moon. So from Konishu's rating system, that is a 9 out of 10. I am unashamedly going to say that because I just love this issue. I love I thought the art was really good. It's not my thing, but I certainly wasn't offended by the art. I thought the art was fantastic in that regards. But yeah, just this world building, lore building from MacKay, the way he just masterfully interweaves it with Moon Knight, traditional classic Moon Knight lore, the use of classic characters like Marlene, and legacy characters like Dietrich. I mean, she's the daughter of Mark. She's very new, and I mentioned she came about in the Bemis run, so not that long, but being the daughter, she's a big support cast member in the Moon Knight world. 9 out of 10. I cannot give it enough praise. Right, well, if you bear with me, I know this is a live stream, but if you bear with me, I'm going to throw to a break, but this is a bit of magic we have here, because it's not really a break, but I will be inserting some ads in the podcast version of this. So, having said all that, I'll catch you at the other side of the break, and we'll go through some quotation marks, some Loony feedbacks. Catch you very soon. Okay, well, that was so smooth, Ray. I don't know how you managed to make it so smooth. Welcome back, Loony listeners. This is episode 308. You're with your High Priest of Khonshu, Ray. Good day. Hang on, let me finish the last of my wine here. Live stream makes it all better. Anyway, have some feedback here. Thank you so much for everyone that's dropped in the line. And here's what you have to say about the Moon Knight Annual Volume 3, Issue 1, Homecoming. So the first bit, there's a whole heap here from our Facebook group, so thank you very much. Phil Perrich, producer, host, co-host to many shows from Capes and Lunatics. Big shout out to Capes and Lunatics and Capes and Lunatics sidekicks. Phil says, I've been loving Jed's run on the series, but I'm happy we finally got an update and got to see Marlene and Dietrich. Yeah, thank you, Phil. Yeah, me too. It was a pleasant surprise. I did not expect it. Absolutely loved it. I was expecting like a classic tale of Werewolf by Night and Moon Knight. I don't know, maybe like as I said, like a homage to 1975. I don't know. But Jed really pulled something out of the hat. I really, really did enjoy it. So thank you, Phil. Another Loony here, Derek Scott Plummer, says, overall, really solid. My only real complaint is that I definitely missed Alessandro Cappuccio on art. Some panels were hard to follow, and I really did not like the one panel showing Jake with the mask off. He looked just really goofy. Seriously, Derek, I did not read your comments. This is the first time I'm reading the comments. Yes, so Derek, absolutely, you and me both. I love the story, though. Hunter's Moon was so good, but the conversation with Reese and Marlene is the highlight. I felt it was very strong as well, hence it was part of my aspects as well. As a young dad, I really felt for Mark in those last couple pages as well. Derek, nice one. We have a papa in the house here. Yeah, me too. I mean, look, um, it's weird, and look, I don't want to be like preachy or anything like that, but it's so true. Like when you do have like a kid, it really does change the way you see things. I think it does something weird to men. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it is me. But like you get these emotional cues in movies and what you read just hit so much harder, especially when it's to do with family. Like the live stream, I'm going to confess now. Uh, I've I never would have before, but I've cried a couple of times now watching some Disney movies that I watched with Finn, my son. It's just they really pull at your emotional heartstrings for some of it. And before, you know, when I was a youngin, I didn't really care. But now, because I don't know, you have like a little person in your life, and it really does change you. That's all I'm gonna say. That's I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It just changes you. So totally agree with you, Derek. So thank you for saying that as well. I got that too with the end. It's such a hard thing that Marlene and Dietrich they have to be separated from Mark. I mean, that's a hard thing, and it doesn't have to be a superhero story for that to happen in real life. That's a tragedy. I guess that was one of the themes I did put in my notes. One of the themes for this issue is tragedy, and unfortunately, tragedy follows Mark around like anything. So the most tragic, I think, is with his family. So again, thank you, Derek. Uh, Another one here from Petroni Jonathan Sapsid, and Jonathan says, I really enjoyed this. Great cover from Rod Reyes. I totally agree. Sabatini's angular art gets better each time. Here, the contrast between the two fists and with the wolves made great scenes. MacKay's story was entertaining, although we never really thought Jack Russell or Badder were going to kill Dietrich. And the way the whole thing was resolved with Dietrich being the grown-up was funny, but kind of a cop-out. Also, would Marlene really be so cold? Maybe. But as an annual with some older, neglected characters, this hit the mark. Yeah, Jonathan, you some great points there as well. I forgot to mention it, but I felt the same too. It just feels a bit hard to say cop out, but I just felt that, they all ran out of time, so everyone stopped fighting. You know, everything is meaningless now if you try and keep on fighting. It did seem like it was a little bit anticlimactic, I think, in that sense. Not enough to really derail my thoughts on the issue, on the annual. But yeah, that did stick out for me. It was kind of like, oh, is that it? I like the way that you said it, Jonathan, that it actually showed Dietrich as being the grown up. And she actually called time out. I love how Dietrich is almost uh, unaware of, the danger. She's almost like made of Teflon. She doesn't care. Like even kidnapped by a werewolf, who cares? Look, I'm going to call you Jack, Mr. Jack, whatever. I just like I like her sensibility. It's very entertaining. But yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Loved your comments there. I think Marlene. You've got it questioning. Was she really so cold? Maybe. Yeah, I think so. I think she would be. I think she'd be hardened, having had a long-term relationship with Mark. So, I think her voice was kind of spot on. It picked up exactly where she kind of left off. So thanks for that once again. Mario DiGiacomo or Digicom, another valued Petroni. Thank you, Mario. Mario says, I pretty much agree about the art. Unmasked Jake looked weird. Again, another one. And totally agree. The dynamics of how Khonshu and the Darkhold interact with the werewolf curse is a bit muddy, unless a K-Man is a lot older than he appears, which has been hinted before. But I like how recent events have positioned the fists in a horror milieu. We've had vampires, mummies, and now werewolves. I've read some interesting discussions about how, despite Mark fearing people, only liked Stephen and Jake. Marlene makes it clear that she loves all three of them, even if Mark does hide behind his mask in front of her. But MVP of the issue has to be Dietrich. Her sass stole the show. She's clearly inherited the Spectre Snark trademark. Thank you, Mario. Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Dietrich, she's got a very strong personality, and it showed in the two scenes the two main scenes that she had with Jack Russell, and at the end with her diffusing the fight. Yeah, a bit muddy. Be keen to know what you mean by that as well. Maybe that was what I had kind of alluded to, but I think I've come to some sort of logic, as my past comments had mentioned. But no, thank you, Mario. Would love to, hear your thoughts on that as well. And I love this whole kind of horror element. I love how Khonshu's injected into it as well. It's all horror, isn't it? I mean, even Stained Glass Scarlet had this kind of horror, like she's a story. She's elevated to some sort of godhood. I love that mixed with the deities. It's really good. Going on, Charlie Esser, again from Capes and Lunatics, a fantastic network and podcast show. Capes and Lunatic sidekicks. Charlie says, my biggest question is, where can I pick up Jack's long adventure to be the king of all wolves? I mean, it sounds awesome reading the Darkhold fighting Wendigos, plural, an entire werewolf culture. Sounds like fun. Absolutely, Charlie. I'd love to. As I said, Jed MacKay drops in these potentials, that could be expanded even further. The bold stroke, I thought, was imparting that kind of lore on Jack Russell, because I would have thought the TV show, he might have been a little less likely to, be given such a big swing of lore that Jed MacKay had given. I thought that maybe editors would have said, okay, well, since we've got the TV show, we've got to kind of make it similar-ish, which Marvel have been known to do. But anyway, Charlie, totally on board as well. Please, Marvel, would love more elaboration on the werewolf side of things. The final one from Facebook is from Noel, Papa Noel Tate. Hey, Noel, hope you are going well with little Arlo, and hope the fam is doing well, of course. Noel says, quickly, not a lot of time to review this beast, as Arlo was keeping Daddy up till 4 a.m. You gotta love parenthood. I love the story, not wild, like an animal, about the art. Sabatini isn't everyone's cup of tea, but glad to hear that you enjoyed it. It was a very strong annual. I mean, the Death of Mark Spector, I think I really enjoyed as well. I'm not sure if it was an annual or it was a one-shot, but Silent Night, that Christmas one, was it's got to be one of my favourites too. So Moon Knight annuals or one-shots, the track record's looking good. But thank you, Noel. Now we've got another one from Twitter, Four-Sky, so at a Four-Sky underscore K. They mention, it's great to see Mark's family reunion. The panel showing Mark and Marlene both recalling their fathers is very touching. Thank you, Jed. Can't blame Marlene for taking the child away. She was right as a mother. Being Moon Knight means violent, blood and death, and there's no room for children. In this regard, Khonshu is right. In a Fist of Khonshu cannot have descendants. Yeah, good point as well. Maybe that's something to protect, protect the innocents, really, because they do protect innocence. However, I hope in the future Mark can visit Dietrich and her mother, perhaps in the identity as Stephen or Jake, as a disguise for safety. After all, Mark loves to travel, and Hunter's Moon can take his work for a while. Yes, LOL. I love that idea for Sky as well. Mark does love to travel. I wish we get a little bit more international jet setting. I mean, I love that component of Moon Knight, and for sure Hunter's Moon can certainly take on the role while Moon Knight is away. Or can he? I mean, after issue 16, what the hell's happened to poor Dr. Batter, the human pincushion? We'll have to figure out later. But thank you so much, Sky, for dropping your thoughts on Twitter. And finally, just a short and sweet one on Instagram. Aspect of Khonshu says, my LCS only had the variant, but to be honest, I kind of want that one. And I can't blame you as well. That's a very beautiful cover by Nick Klein. I'm assuming if you're talking about the Sienkiewicz one, the 1-25, then I am jelly. because I'd love to one day get a 1 to 25, but they are a bit too expensive for me. Maybe not. Maybe they are. Well, loonies, that pretty much wraps it. Thank you so much for listening, for tuning in. Hopefully, just the one voice has not sent you to sleep. I do have a mutant ability to send people to sleep with the sound of my voice. It's not the best when you're a podcaster. I realize that, but hey, I was given this gift. So anyway, hopefully you're still awake. Have that cup of coffee, and I don't know, get those matchsticks in your eyelids, under your eyelids. Spectacle. I just want to shout out a bit of shameless plugging. I want to shout out a couple of shows that I've been on. New show, Predator and Prey. I'm sporting the Hunters of the Universe, my Ho2 clan. Me, Justin, and Russell. We've got a new show. We've just released episode 3. We go through Ed Brisson's Predator comic book series. We go through the anthology novel, which is an awesome read. Which we go through 3 chapters. This is a monthly show, and then we review Predator movies. So we were up to Predator 2 from 1990. Oh, listen to it if you can. If you're a Predator fan, it's so much fun. Anyway, Predator and Prey, I'll put the link in the show notes, as well as the episode 200 for the Ultimate Spider Cast. So Phil, who I mentioned earlier in the comments, Lilith, his co-host Dave, who sent in a couple of live comments in the show just then, and myself, we talk about Craven's Last Hunt, which we've already talked about it a couple of times, but I'd never lose interest in talking about it. It's a lot of fun, especially with those guys, so check it out as well. Next phase, episode 309, it's going to be a waxing gibbous. I've already checked the moon phases. So a waxing gibbous, I always take the Saturday night moon of the week. So that generally covers, we may drop the show not on the Saturday, but it's always based on the Saturday night moon. So the waxing gibbous is on next week. It's an other side of the moon, which means it's still yet to be determined, but it's a body of work or an issue from an ex-Moon Knight creator, whether it be a writer or an artist. So it could be another Jed MacKay issue. It could be Iron Cat, Strange, just off the top of my head. Maybe even Magic, his other series. Could be Charlie Houston. I thought would be probably topical in the sense that I know that he did a Werewolf by Night miniseries. So Charlie Houston's Werewolf by Night would be pretty cool. There's also Colin Bunn, Jeff Lemire. I might actually put it up for poll for the patrons, for the patroonies. Let us know what you would like covered, like which creator, and we'll pick from there. Hopefully I'll grab a co-host, give my old vocals a bit of a rest, but keep your eyes peeled out on our social media platforms. Once again, a huge thank you to our patroonies, those listed as co-producers and executive producers, or just any of the loonies. Thank you so much. A huge thanks to Odin, Daniel, Drew, Frank, Justin, Derek, Wayne, Josh, Anthony, Russell, Michael, Mario, Matthew, Jonathan, and now, of course, Dan. Thank you so much, Dan, for jumping on. You too can become a patroonie. Check out patreon.com/ITK Moon Knight. Yes, I realize it is the end of October. I haven't got a bonus episode for October yet, but I'm hoping early November. So don't worry, there'll be 2 bonus episodes in November. Just have run out of time. Life in general, just got some family commitments and all that. So hopefully we can set something up. We will soon. And yeah, patroonies, Patreon members, you'll be privy to all that. Once again, big sponsors by Odin Sword. Check out his Drinking Marvel podcast. Frank, the Think Tank Dukes. Please check out I Want to Fight It podcast. It's awesome with his nephew, Pablo Candy Bar. So much fun. I'm going to listen to it tonight. Fringe Night by Daniel Doing. Daniel's been sending me awesome photos of his cosplay. Daniel is a fantastic cosplayer. He's got a 3D printer. He can print out an awesome Moon Knight suit. I've seen it right in time for Halloween. And you can support him on patreon.com/fringenight27. Then we have the awesome Drew Toombs, the irrepressible. Check out his music on soundcloud.com/Toombs with a Z, or lurkmusic with a ck.bandcamp.com on Bandcamp. Also as well, CLZ Comics, go to collectors.com for all your needs, database needs. I've updated, I'm ordering a lot. I just love picking little bargains. I'm constantly ordering little comic books, potential trades, and some omnis as well. Ray's having fun, let's just say that. But go check them out. That's a great way of keeping track of all your orders. That's what I'm saying. Finally, also Dreamland Comics. You can use the code MOON and you get 20% off their store. And finally, The Collective. Fantastic shows. I'm going to shout out a few of them here. They're really good. Inner Demons, Brian Biggie. So Brian, I've got to get some feedback to you. Get some Ghost Rider feedback to you. Yes, Sim, Dave from Signal of Doom, and Phil and Charlie from Capes and Lunatics. Fantastic shows there. I always forget this on the video. So big credits. Yes, there you all are, except for Dan. I've got to update that now. And you can email us on feedback@itkmoonnight.com. We've got a website, just there it is. And we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the likes of YouTube and Podchaser. And incidentally, if you want to leave a review on Podchaser or on Apple or on Spotify or on Google, please do so. It helps us improve the show and expand the show to those potential loonies out there. Alrighty, loonies. That's it from me. I am out of here. Thank you so much. And as always, may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.